are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAC Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Cuckoo. And in today's show, I want to discuss the Haitian Revolution, 1804, the Haitian Revolution. I want to discuss its 5 interest groups in that revolution. I want to discuss historically how it began. And I want to make this a little bit of a mini series on 1804, the Haitian Revolution. Today is going to be more of a historical talk. In my next show, I hope to have a special guest to talk about 5 issues that many have with the Haitian Revolution. So today's show, if we're going to talk about the Haitian Revolution, which was from 1791 to 1804, and it marked the end of slavery and French control in Haiti. Before you can even talk about Haiti, though, you have to talk about France. And you have to talk about the revolution that occurred in France, called the French Revolution, which ended in 1789, a few years before the Haitian Revolution ended. The Haitian Revolution was, in fact, influenced by the French Revolution. In the French Revolution, you saw the end of absolute monarchy and the feudal system. As a matter of fact, in today's Black America, we live, most people, not just Black, but we live in somewhat of a feudal system now. A feudal system is where you have the top 1% control everything, and everyone basically works for and pays homage to the top 1%. So in the French Revolution, there were problems with absolute monarchy. There were problems with the feudal system. The people revolted, and it became an example of what the will of the people can do. And this later, along with something else I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, this is what pushed the Haitian people to revolt and lead to the 1804 Haitian Revolution, Haitian independence. So back in France, you had King Louis, who was basically, he mismanaged the company. He left the country. He left the country nearly bankrupt. There was heavy taxation going on the poor and the peasantry. So the poor and the peasantry, they eventually began rioting, looting, and maybe 17,000 people died. As a matter of fact, the peasantry and the poor, they looted and burned down the homes of the tax collectors, the landlords, and the elite. And this is something that Blacks today can learn from. When you take your fight, stop burning down these areas. I know these areas aren't really yours. You're renters in these areas, you're squatters. But if you really want to get people to pay attention, you go after the tax collectors, the landlords, and the elites. You all go after their shit, not your own shit, whether you're renting it or not. You go after their stuff. Go to their side of town and take it to them. So this is what occurred in France. When this started to happen, when they started to go after the tax collectors' homes, the landlords, the elites, it led to the Declaration of the Right of Man and of the Citizen It was a declaration that was put in place to supposedly replace the old feudal system and replace it with a system based on equal opportunity, representation, freedom of speech, etc. But it didn't really work well. It was a cool idea, but it didn't really work well. And what ended up happening, seeing that it didn't work well, it led to King Louis himself being ousted and executed. And several months later, it led to his wife, Marie, let them eat cake Antoinette. We've all heard about Marie Antoinette's talking about let them eat cake. It led to her also being executed. This also led to more turmoil. The execution of King Louis and Marie Antoinette led to more turmoil. And eventually that led to a coup d'etat by Napoleon Bonaparte, thus ending the French Revolution. When the French Revolution ended, that brought in the Napoleonic Era, which saw basically much of Europe being dominated by Napoleon and his ideology. Napoleon now is where the French Revolution and the creation of Napoleon, the rise of Napoleon, plays a lot to do in the Haitian story. Now remember, at the time, Haiti wasn't known as Haiti, it was known as Saint Dominique. It was the French's wealthiest overseas colony due to King Sugar, coffee, indigo, and cotton, all produced from slave labor. When you have a economic system like that, you're going to have different groups with different interests or different interest groups. So there were 5 interest groups in Haiti at the time. You had the white slave owners, which for some reason, historically, they're called planters, which I always found funny. But they're white slave owners. You had the poorer whites, the petit blancs. These were your teachers, your shopkeepers, your artisans, different types of laborers, but they were poorer than the slave masters. The third group you had were your free blacks, of which 50% of those free blacks were actually mulatto. And they were wealthier than the poor whites. Then you had your slaves proper, and then you had the runaway slaves, or the maroons of Haiti. So this is important to remember these 5 interest groups, because in present day, much of what's going on has to do with a similar group, with a similar series of interest groups, right? So remember, in France, one of the problems that led to the declaration was that there wasn't much representation, there was high taxation, etc. Well, the whites in Saint Dominique had no French representation, so they had no one in France who represented their interests in the colony. They were being heavily taxed, etc., doing all the work, or I should probably say they were seeing to all the work being done, because all the work was being done by black slaves. So they were being heavily taxed. So naturally, they were thinking about removing themselves from France rule and becoming an independent nation. They were seeking their independence from France. However, they still wanted to keep slavery. So the bread and butter of what had them, the wealthiest colony, giving homage and tribute to France, they wanted to continue doing it, but cut themselves off from having to give anything to France. So, of course, France wouldn't want that. On the other side of these white slave owners who had issues with France for the reasons I just mentioned, well, you had the maroons, the runaway slaves. Of course, they were always revolting. This wasn't new for them. With France's Declaration of the Rights of Man, what you saw was the slave masters began to get a little bit more autonomy. They were able to do things the way they wanted to do things. The poor whites, however, weren't extended the same privileges, but ironically enough, the freed blacks, who again, 50% of those people were mulatto, and they were wealthier than the poor whites, they were giving a lot of the autonomy that Francis Declaration of the Rights of Man was providing. So you see here what occurs is this three-way war. The white elites, who were the slave owners, the poorer whites, and the free blacks. Now, the idea of this podcast today, like I said, this is hopefully the beginning of a mini series of podcasts on 1804, the Haitian Revolution, and what it means to us today. But today in black society here in America, and probably anywhere where there's a black population, it's the same war occurring. So we could use the Haitian Revolution to identify who we're at war with. When the French gave the declaration, it immediately gave some people more rights than others. Of course, it gave the white slave owners more autonomy. It gave less autonomy to the poor whites in comparison to the white slave owners, the elites. But freed blacks also saw some similar autonomy as the slave owners or the white elites in Haiti. So this three-way war occurred. But who was at war with all three of those groups? That's the part that really applies to the majority of us here in America, the Caribbean, and Africa in the present day. The slaves themselves, the slaves proper, so to speak. The slave population was the majority of the people. And they were against all three of those warring groups I mentioned, the white elite, slave masters, the petite blancs, who were the poor whites, and the free blacks. And this is what we can learn. This is one of the first lessons we could learn from the Haitian Revolution to this day. The majority of us being subjugated under a system of white supremacy, we need to identify who we're up against. And we need to draw hard lines against these three groups. The white elites, these poor whites, your everyday average white person, and the free blacks. You see, the everyday white person supports the system of white supremacy. I have a personal take that all white folks are racist. And I make no apologies about it, because the average day regular white, the average white person you see at work, who some of you go out and eat with and go to happy hour with, they all support the system. Because none of them are taking a hard line or stepping up or organizing in any way to change the status quo. Remember, one of the U.S. presidents said some decades ago that once the poorest white person thinks he or she is better than the best black person, you've got it made. And this is currently what's going on. There's black people today who think that if you back the liberals or the Democrats, you can fight the system of white supremacy, and that's nonsense. Liberals, Democrats, conservatives, Republicans, they're just two sides of the same racist coin. You want some proof of that? Take a look at New York City, for example, Harlem, Flatbush, Crown Heights, etc. That's Bed-Stuy, Do or Die Bed-Stuy, Brownsville. All these places are being gentrified. New York is a democratic state. Most of the folks here are liberal white folks. So who's doing the gentrification? I'm going to do a show on this sometime in the future too. Liberals and gentrification. It's the liberals who are the gentrifiers, the neo-colonialists. They're the ones who come into historically black neighborhoods, don't give a shit about the people there, raise the prices, drive them out of their historic headquarters or center, and they don't care. And we know that gentrification is a racist practice because you could have come into those neighborhoods and improved the neighborhood, improved the police protection, improved the schools, improved the food, improved the stores, just improved everything. You could have done that with the people there. Instead, you came in with a tactic of pricing the people out so that you could take it. So what's the difference really between a liberal and a conservative? Well, a conservative doesn't give a shit about you. He doesn't give a shit if your 12-year-old unarmed son is killed playing in a park. He doesn't give a shit if your teenage boy is walking at home at night and someone stalks him and engages in an encounter with him and kills him. He doesn't care if your daughter broke down on the side of the road and went to ask for help and someone shot her in the face and killed her. Your conservatives just don't care. Your liberals are a little bit more bleeding heart, and they will be like, man, look, you didn't have to shoot that 12-year-old unarmed boy. You didn't have to shoot this woman whose car broke down and she came asking for help. Come on, man, you didn't have to do that. We have them in control already. Remember, Hillary Clinton is a Democrat, and she was talking about keeping your children on the heel. That's all they want to do, both sides. They want to keep you as a black person in check. It's just that liberals are slightly more bleeding heart than the other side, than conservatives. So identifying the Haitian Revolution gives us a blueprint in identifying who you are up against and who you need to toe a hard line against. So I talked about the elites, who are the obvious group. I talked about the poor whites, who are not so obvious to a lot of us black folks. A lot of us black folks think that we have friends who are white. We don't. But the last group is the very interesting group, and historically they are a thorn in the side of those of us who are trying to fight against the system of white supremacy. And these are your so-called free blacks during the Haitian Revolution. Right now, you could consider them your elite blacks, your bourgeoisie blacks, etc. The free blacks of its day would have been our Stephen A. Smith right now. Our Ray Lewis right now. I'll even go as far to say as it would include our Oprah, Tyler Perry, Larry Elder, Bob Johnson, Michael Jordan. These are the kind of assholes it was people of that ilk who were the so-called free blacks in that day. The ones who want to tell you that there's no white supremacy acting against you actively every day and trying to hold you down, trying to destroy you from the time you were born, from even before the time you were born, from you in the womb. No, it's all about you and what you do or don't do. There's nothing holding you back. There's no one. Those are the guys. And the Haitians drew a hard line against those free blacks too. Also, remember I mentioned that the free blacks were 50% mulatto. So these mixed biracial kids, the Haitians drew a hard line against them too. Because at the end of the day, whether you want to admit it or not, a biracial child is never going to side and really fight. They may talk the talk like a Jesse Williams does. Kudos to him, but he left his black wife for a white woman, last I heard. They're going to be down with you somewhat, but they're not really going to challenge anything. And if it comes to a fight, if it comes to a war, they will sell you out quickly.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAC Radio.
The Haitians understood this, but do we understand this over 200 years later? Do we understand it? And I wager to say that we don't as a collective. As a matter of fact, the Atlantic Star did this video talking about the Hotep blacks versus intersectionality blacks. This is a part of the same fight right now, where you have these sub-interest groups in black society that put the topic of their sub-interests above the collective to the point of sabotage. Gay blacks, there'll be no black revolution if there's no black gay revolution first. You see these intersectionalists? They're also in that free black category that the Haitians had to deal with and drew a hard line against. We have to draw a hard line against them too. And so this is why studying history, there's a statement, know your history, know your destiny. When you study your history, you get to understand exactly what you need to do. But continuing the historical account, the slave population was the majority. They were against those other three groups. And of course, the runaway slaves, the Maroons, were against those groups. And so together, they had that militancy and they had the sense of urgency based on what happened in France, seeing what the poor and the peasantry class were able to do, how they revolted and how they attacked the people who had them in those conditions. They didn't attack themselves. They went right to the heart of the matter and burned down the houses, etc., of, like I said, the tax collectors, the landlords, etc. So it came to be from this slave group in Haiti, you had the rise of a former slave, Toussaint Louverture, and together they rebelled against the masters. This was in around 1791, and they ended up controlling a third of the island by 1792, despite French reinforcements. Now think about this at the time. We all have some idea who Napoleon Bonaparte was. They were a beast. So to take control of a third of an island in a year in the face of the French army is something that we need to dissect even further. And if you know anyone out there who is well versed in the military tactics, this is something we need to discuss as well. I've been wanting to do a podcast on militarism in the black community. And so this will be a good jumping off point. If you know someone who is well versed in that area, by all means, please have them contact us and let's set this up. Let's talk about it. So Haiti was able to hold off the French. They also held off the British, who came to Saint Dominique or Haiti in 1793. The British gave up in 1798 due to all of the defeats that they had occurred. So we're talking about the top militaries in the day: the French military and the British military. Haiti, the Haitians, the slaves, the Maroons, the runaways, they defeated them under Louverture. In 1801, Louverture defeated the neighboring Spanish in the area of the island that was called Santo Domingo, that's now today called the Dominican Republic. Louverture abolished Spanish slavery and became governor general over the entire island. So let's go back and take account of this now. The Haitians defeated the French, the British, and the Spanish. The best militaries of its time. How did they do it? I would love to have someone on who could speak to the military tactics, because clearly the Haitian people were able to tap into something most likely African. They tapped into a code of conduct, I'm sure. I want to discuss it. I want to break it down. And what's somewhat known amongst people who are in the know, they tapped into an African-centered value system of spirituality. In the coming shows, we'll talk more about that as well. But Bookman, a former slave from Jamaica who was in Haiti, he told the people, you got to put down this white god thing and pick up your African gods to defeat these groups that we have to go up against. And that's something that has to happen today. Black folks, you have to rest down this white God thing and stop talking about, well, it don't really matter what color God is. For you, it matters. For an outclassed, underrepresented, persecuted group of people, if you're going to believe in anything or anyone that could lead you out of this mess, out of this situation, it has to be someone black. And that's not to say you have to make it up. The fact of the matter is that it's true. You believe in Jesus? Jesus was a black man. You believe in all of the people spoken of as prophets and whatnot in the Bible? Most of those people were black people. You have to embrace the blackness of your deities, and more importantly, you have to embrace the black deity within you. And that will help you to get this oppression up off you. As a matter of fact, we intend to do, if you follow us on Facebook at the Bitter Medicine Show, you know that we want to talk about black spirituality. I'm trying right now to get some elders in different black spiritualities, different faiths, to talk about what their faith is doing. We want to analyze, what is your faith doing for the black man here on earth? Because I don't want to hear anything about when we die and reap the rewards of heaven and all this stuff. Me personally, I'm done with that. And I say you should be too. Because any faith that has you, as Martin Luther King said, any faith that has you waiting for your white robe and golden slippers in the sky while we ignore what's going on with us here on earth is no faith you need to be following. These white folks out here are focused on here and now. Maybe in their dying hour they resort to some kind of religion or spirituality, but they really focus on the here and the now. They focus on earth. So to continue with the historical account, Napoleon, after Haiti had defeated the French, the British, the Spanish, Napoleon ends up sending Leclerc and 40,000 plus troops to capture Louverture. They took Louverture to France. They imprisoned him. This was around 1803. And he died in prison in France. He never actually saw Haitian independence on January 1st, 1804. One of his generals, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, he continued the revolution after Louverture was taken away to France. And he led the revolution that defeated the 40,000 plus troops that came with Leclerc. It was he who declared independence on January 1st, 1804. And history likes to romanticize it and say that France was the first country to recognize its independence, therefore making Haiti the first black republic, meaning that it was the first black place where the will of the people was the majority. Now, the truth of the matter is that Haiti had to pay France reparations, and that's why France acknowledged them as a independent black nation. This is what they don't really tell you. As a matter of fact, in the aftermath of the Haitian Revolution, Haiti was, for all intents and purposes, broke. They paid reparations in the sum of 90 mil gold francs between 1825 and 1947. Now, 90 million gold francs in today's money is about $22 billion. $22 to $25 billion. Do you know what the GDP of Haiti is today? It's about $8 billion. There's 8 dudes in America right now, including Mark, what's this guy named? Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook and stuff like that. They together, 8 of those guys, they make up the GDP of Haiti today. Haiti spent $22 billion in today's money in reparations to France. Also, for all intent and purposes, also the base of Haiti's wealth in the aftermath of the revolution was destroyed because most of the plantations were destroyed. Additionally, because remember Haiti beat the French, the British, the Spanish, there was a lot of hostility from the international community. So people like the U.S., the British, France, Spain, who still had slavery, by the way, they didn't want to acknowledge this free black nation. And that hostility continued because when the Industrial Revolution replaced slavery, Haiti never saw the Industrial Revolution for about 200 years after it started. There were some other things, too, that kind of contributed to the aftermath of Haiti. At the time, people didn't know that there was really gold in Haiti. It wasn't confirmed that there was gold in Haiti until about the 1970s. And we know what the deal is with the gold now in Haiti, with the Clintons holding all the reins over the gold in Haiti. Haiti over the years has been systematically oppressed. It's been drained of its resources. The people have been kept poor, kept undereducated, kept in poor nutrition, kept with these leaders who weren't shit. And we're going to talk more about that in subsequent podcasts concerning 1804, the Haitian Revolution. So this was the aftermath of Haiti, and this was how it began. Now, we could talk more about what happened just after in 1804 to 1820 with Dessalines, Christophe, and Pétion. But I'm not going to talk about that now. When I have my guest on in the next podcast, we'll discuss it a little bit further. This podcast was to run down the basics of the history of the Haitian Revolution, starting from the French Revolution, and how the French Revolution inspired the slaves and the runaway slaves of Haiti. Well, the runaway slaves didn't need much inspiration. They were rebellious to begin with. They were always revolting. But it inspired the people who were the majority to identify and overthrow who were their enemies in the country. And the take home from today's podcast that I have, and I'm trying to get across to you, is we need to honestly identify who are our enemies. It's not just white people. And it's not just rich white people. This is another lie a lot of black folks, cowardly black folks, like to bring up. Oh, it's about class. It's not about race. It's a mix of the two. We have the elite whites on our heads. We have the poor whites on our heads because in their mind, they're still better than the best Negro you can find. And we got the elite blacks, or in Haiti's time, the free blacks. We have those on our heads too, because those are the fuckers who are out here talking about it's us. It's no one else, it's us. They turn blinders on to the elites and to the average poor white person. It's all about us. Because they've been allowed to move on up into a place that gives them a certain level of distinction, because they never question, they never interrupt what the white elites and even some of the poor whites are doing. They just turn a blind eye to that side of the world. So we've got to identify who it is, who are enemies, and we need to identify our allies. Stop fighting against the so-called Hotep blacks, the militant blacks. Stop being cowards in that way. And instead talking about intersectionality and all these different subgroups of blackness, and what we need to come to is a black first mentality. Like Dr. Sebi used to say, anything white, stay away from it. And he was talking about food, but I'm applying it to everything. White sugar, white potatoes, white rum, all that stuff, stay away from it. White rice, stay away from it. We need to start to get back to African-centered selves. And everything we need to do has to be a code towards being our African-centered selves. If you're black and gay, you're black first. You're gay after that. When all of us have our freedom, when we've all shaken off this oppression, you could do what you want to do, because your sexuality is something that you do in your bedroom anyway. Stop putting your sexual access ahead of your blackness. When we talk about boycotting, we got to boycott some of these so-called free blacks, these bourgeoisie blacks who pretend that there's not a system of white supremacy. Those are our enemies too. So let's study the Haitian Revolution. And I'm going to talk more about certain aspects of the Haitian Revolution. I know my guest who's going to come on, he has some fundamental questions when it comes to the Haitian Revolution, like, Haiti gained their independence, but what has it done for the Haitian now? Why isn't the Haitian independence celebrated throughout the Caribbean? Which is a very good question. We are doing other Caribbean folks are doing the work of the oppressor. We've shunned the Haitian. We don't talk about the fact that they were the first black republic that led to so much other revolts here in America, in South America, Central America. Haitian Revolution was the shining light for all of those different groups. I know my next guest is going to have questions of, why did the European nations not recognize Haiti's independence? Well, I kind of addressed that here because most of them still dealt in slavery. So they wouldn't want to recognize a country that abolished it and fought for its independence. My guest is probably going to want to talk about, how could the whole history of black African in the Caribbean, South and North America been different if Haiti had gone on a quest? And this is a good question. If Haiti had gone on a quest, created something like a liberation army, and gone into South of America, into South America itself, into other parts of the Caribbean, what could have occurred? And then a huge question, something that we could really spend a whole podcast or two talking about is, why hasn't Haiti been successful since independence? I think I touched on a few of the things here, but when I have my guest on, I'll have him give his opinion. I know my guest has always had this question since I've known him. Did Toussaint want Haiti to be free, an independent black nation? Or did he want Haiti to be like how, have the relationship with the U.S. that Puerto Rico has with the U.S.? So in other words, did Toussaint really want freedom? Or did he, not just freedom, but did he really want independence? Or did he want a kind of independent dependence like Puerto Rico has with the U.S.? And Puerto Rico is suffering right now. So I'm going to post some of these questions below. Please take time to comment, answer some of these questions, give your opinion. We would like to be able to talk about this fully in the next podcast. And I'd like to do, like I said before, a few podcasts on this topic because I think that the whole history of Haiti, the history of its revolution and the aftermath is something that we could learn from. We could learn about how to fight the oppression, and we could learn about how not to suffer after fighting the oppression. Until next time, guys, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share our content. Make sure to follow us on all social media. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, take care.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.